The moment she walked into the room in her white dress, I knew it was the end. Not the beginning of a new life, not a happy day, not a fairy tale that the guests believed in. But the end. In a few minutes, everyone will know who she really is. Parents, friends, colleagues, everyone who admired her, who said that we were the perfect couple, who considered her the embodiment of fidelity. Everyone will see what is hidden behind her beautiful smile. That I stood at the altar, watched her walk towards me, how her face shone with happiness, how her lips trembled with excitement. She didn't know. She didn't know that while she was preparing for the most important day of her life, I was preparing something she would never forget. Ready? Let's begin. My name is Matthew Evans, and in 1 week I was to marry Ashley Howard, the woman I loved with all my heart. We had been together for so many years, so many trials. I believed we knew each other better than anyone. I believed we were together until the end. I was an idiot. That night I was sitting at a bar with my friend Samuel, drinking a beer after a long day at work. We talked about the wedding, about plans for the future. He joked that I was about to be hitched, and I just laughed back. Ashley and I had no secrets, we were honest with each other. I was as sure of that as I was of my own name. And then I got a text message. A known number. Your fiancé is having a great time while you're sitting here. I wonder how you'll react to that. I frowned. The number was unfamiliar. At the same second, another message came through. A video. I pressed play. The screen flashed and I saw her. Ashley. Club, dimmed lights, loud music. Girls' night out. She's laughing, holding a glass, with men all around her. Half naked, pumped up, torsoed strippers. I gritted my teeth, clenched my phone in my hand, but kept watching. She laughed, touching them, and then one of them picked her up in his arms. Her dress pulled up too high, she didn't resist. Laughter, alcohol. Movements, a kiss. She kissed him, and then disappeared into the darkness with him. Matt? Sam's voice snapped me out of my trance. I slowly pulled my gaze away from the screen. My heart was pounding. Blood pounded in my temples. A cold, maddening anger throbbed in my chest. What happened? He asked warily. I didn't answer. I just handed him the phone. He watched the video. For a few seconds, I saw his expression change. Shit. He whispered. Shit. I couldn't speak. My throat was lumpy, my teeth clenched so hard they hurt. It couldn't have been her. She wouldn't do that. I wanted to convince myself that it was just a joke, some stupid mistake. But the longer I looked at the screen, the clearer I realized it was real. My fiancé, his mother, is cheating on me. A week before the wedding. Stripper. Dude, what are you going to do? Sam's voice sounded serious. I mean, this is fucked up. What am I going to do? I didn't know. Only one thought pulsed in his head: gather evidence. I won't make a scene, I won't call her and yell into the phone. I won't give her any hint that I know the truth. I'll make sure that on her wedding day she drowns in her own betrayal. At home, lying in the dark, I scrolled through the video over and over again, studying every detail. Ashley and the stripper, their movements and the kiss. How easily she gave herself to the moment, as if everything that was happening was natural, acceptable to her. The only thought going through my mind was that this wasn't the first time she'd done this. Someone who crosses the border for the first time doesn't act so confident. I kept getting the feeling that all of this was just the tip of the iceberg. I had to know the truth. All of it. Among her friends were those who knew more than they were telling. I had to get to them. Saturday morning. Phone in my hand. I looked at the contact list, selecting the right name for Michelle. She's Ashley's best friend. Always there for her, always knew her secrets. If anyone could accidentally tell her, it was her. I texted, suggesting we meet for coffee. Ease, no hint of suspicion. She replied instantly, agreeing. I knew it. She would feel safe to say more than she should. A cafe in the center of town. I arrived early, chose a table by the window. The fog in my head wouldn't clear, but I kept my cool. Everything had to look natural. She showed up 15 minutes later, smiling as if nothing had happened. One thought after another popped into her head. She knew. She'd been at the Bachelorette party, seen what Ashley was doing. And not a word to me. Lies through a smile. I nodded, pretending I was just a normal guy who just wanted to chat about the wedding. The conversation flowed easily. I asked questions, listened. She relaxed. And then she said too much. "Oh, Ashley knows how to have fun," she muttered with a shadow of mockery. "She always has been." I didn't move. Always? I asked her what she meant. I pretended I was just curious. She grinned, took a sip of coffee, shrugged. "Well, girls' night out, alcoholism. Sometimes things just happen." She didn't realize that she was signing Ashley's sentence right now. I forced myself to smile. I asked a couple more neutral questions, thanked him for meeting me. She walked away, not realizing she had told me more than she should have. I remained seated, clutching my cup. So it's not the first time. So Ashley didn't just cheat on me at the bachelorette party. She's been cheating on me forever. I came home, every detail looking different now. Ashley's things, her pictures, all of it suddenly felt ugly, foreign. I walked around the apartment, groping for a reality that was no longer mine. In the closet are her dresses that I used to buy. On the dresser, her perfume, the smell of which once drove me crazy. On the bed, her pillow next to mine. I've been living a lie. Every, "I love," every, "I miss you," every, "we're together forever," were just pretty words she used to cover up her betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about how I couldn't just call off the wedding. I couldn't let her get off scot-free. She must feel the pain she'd caused me. The more I thought about it, the more disgust choked me. I couldn't just stop at one video. It was just the surface layer of dirt, but if I dug deeper, what would I find? I couldn't allow myself to blindly believe it was an isolated incident. I had to find out everything. I knew where to look. Social networks, phone, and old chats. I sat down at my laptop and opened her Instagram. I scrolled through photos I hadn't noticed captions for before. Girlfriends' birthdays, bachelorette parties, corporate events. Every time she said she was just hanging out with the girls. Many of the photos showed the same men. On one, an arm around her waist. Another, too close of a look. On the third, the same stripper she'd been alone with at the bachelorette party. But the nastiest part was in the comments. "Ashley, you're fire. What fun that night was," smirking face. "Looking forward to the sequel." Winking face. I scrolled down, deeper, into the past. The events of a year ago. One night when she told me she'd gone to her mom's. Photo at the club. Same man. Her friends write, "Oh, that night was crazy." I checked the dates. She's been lying to me for years. I never checked her phone. Not because I trusted her, but because I thought it was beneath my dignity. But now I didn't care. I knew her password. Observation, habit. Open the messages. His insides twisted in a knot. Everything was there. "You were the best at that corporate party," face blowing a kiss. A message from 2 months ago. "Matt is away on a business trip. Want to stop by?" Smirking face. "I miss yesterday already. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again," face blowing a kiss. It wasn't just once or even twice she systematically cheated on me. Methodical lies woven around my trust. I couldn't hold the phone in my hands any longer. I slammed it shut, threw it on the bed, and stood up, walking across the room. How blind I was. How she used me. I thought back to her words over the years. "I will never betray you, Matt. You're the only man I love. Sex is not the most important thing in a relationship." God, that's a lie. I picked up my phone, opened my contacts. It took a man who would say more than he wanted to. Her other best friend is Caitlin. She was more talkative than Michelle. I dialed her number. "Hey, Kate. This is Matt." "Oh. Hey, groom of the month." The voice is cheerful, casual. "Listen, I was wondering. You've known Ashley for a long time. You were with her the night she went out with her friends at the corporate party 6 months ago, weren't you?" "Oh, that corporate party. Yeah, that was fun. Did she tell you how it went there? Who she met?" "Oh, come on. You know Ashley, she knows how to find adventure." I could feel the heat rising to my head. "Yeah, does she do that a lot?" "Well, Ashley is a free spirit girl. It's just flirting, nothing like that." "Just flirting?" I turned off the recording and terminated the call. That was enough. Now I knew, They all knew. They laughed, discussed, covered for her. All these years I've lived among people who laughed in my face. I was shaking, but a picture was already forming in my head. I didn't want to just cancel the wedding anymore. I wanted to ruin her life. I picked up my phone and started recording everything. Screenshots of the messages. Video from the bachelorette party. Recordings of girlfriends talking. I'll put together the perfect case. And then I'll make sure that on the wedding day they see it all at once. I would destroy her where she wanted to be happiest. I felt no more pain. Only cold, measured determination. The anger and rage were gone. Now every step was precise, every action deliberate. I had to do everything perfectly. The slightest mistake, she'd get away with it. She'd have a chance. I couldn't let that happen. I had to play the part to the very end. When she got home, I was already waiting. The kiss on the cheek. A warm smile. A perfectly rehearsed lie. I watched her, studying her every movement. The ease with which she entered the house. A house where she was loved, where she was welcome, where she returned not after a strange bed, but after an ordinary day. She talked about the wedding, sharing details. She picked out flowers, talked about the guests, told me how excited she was about the day that would change her whole life. I listened, smiled, asked questions. Every word she said sounded like a taunt. But I didn't give her a single reason to suspect anything was wrong. Her confidence is my greatest asset. I checked everything. Her phone, social media, old correspondence. The bachelorette party was just the tip of the iceberg. Each lie pulled another. Corporations, parties, business trips. Hinted messages, hidden dialogues, blocked contacts. In her world, I existed, and they existed. She never thought I'd start looking for the truth. But I found her. I offered her a romantic dinner at a restaurant. She didn't say no. I've been watching her all evening. The way she fixes her hair, the way she smiles, the way she talks about the dress she's about to pick up from the atelier. Eyes glowing with happiness. She really has no idea. I talked about love, about the future. I looked into her eyes, touched her hand. I said that I couldn't wait for the day when I would say yes to her in front of all our friends and family. I felt like an actor in a perfectly cast role. But the difference was that my performance ended not with applause, but with the destruction of her life. I contacted her friend. Not directly, through a third party, a casual conversation, a framed question. Does she have someone else? The answer came a day later. She was still texting that stripper. Now that the wedding was just days away. She wrote to him that that night was the best night of her life. That she wasn't sure how she felt. I'm not sure before the wedding. She was still choosing. I exhaled and slowly ran my palms over my face. She didn't even realize that she no longer had a choice. I checked the video and IM files. Conversation recordings. It's all saved. Everything is uploaded to an anonymous server. There's a mailing timer set up. At the right moment, and everyone will know the truth. Parents, guests, colleagues, friends. I've created a hidden group chat. Empty for now, but with dozens of participants. On the day of the wedding, it activates itself. As everyone waits for the beautiful ceremony, they will see her true colors. I stood in front of the mirror, looking at my reflection. This time tomorrow, I'll be standing at the altar. And this time tomorrow, she'll realize what she's done. I opened a bottle of whiskey. I poured it into a glass, took a sip. No trepidation. Just anticipation. Tomorrow, her life would fall apart just as mine had once fallen apart. The difference is I gave her a chance. She threw it away. The night before the wedding was spent in tense anticipation. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts swirled around in my head like I was in the center of a storm. I saw her face, heard her laughter, remembered her touching me, whispering words of love. The world I was building with her was rotten from the start. Fate gave her a chance to be honest. But she kept lying. Even when the choice was obvious. Now it's over. Wedding day. I put on my suit, put on my tie, buttoned my cufflinks. The movements are mechanical, polished. I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel joy. I was like a surgeon before surgery, collected, cool, no unnecessary emotions. The sun was shining outside, as if it was going to be a perfect day. The guests began to gather, the sounds of laughter and congratulations coming from all directions. I smiled, accepted handshakes, thanked them for their kind words. I've been called a lucky man. No one knew that in just a few minutes this day would turn into a nightmare. I was standing at the altar. There was silence in the hall. Everyone waited. The sounds of the organ, slow footsteps. She appeared in the doorway. The white dress, the radiant smile, the eyes full of joy. How easy it was for her to play this role. Like she was really going to be a faithful wife. Like she hadn't texted another man a few days before. Like she hasn't betrayed me in years. I looked at her and felt nothing. I discreetly pulled out my phone, opened the prepared email, pressed send. 1 second and the truth spread to dozens of addresses. Instantly. At that moment, she stopped. Her smile trembled. The phone in her hands vibrated. She looked at the screen. His eyes widened. His face turned pale. I watched her world crumble right in front of me. She reread the message, trying to comprehend. Video. Screenshots. Chats. Everything she'd been hiding, everything she'd buried so carefully, exposed. Her bridesmaids stirred beside her. Some of them had gotten a letter too. Guests started pulling out their cell phones. The whispers were turning into rumblings. She lifted her head, meeting my gaze. Shock, fear, and panic. At that moment, she realized I knew everything. That her every move was calculated. That every kiss, every word, no longer has meaning. I watched the desperation flash in her eyes. She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. The world she was trying to create crumbled before her eyes. The first exclamation came from behind him. Someone exhaled loudly and let go of the phone. The buzz in the hall grew like a storm. People stared into the screens, read, reviewed. Parents, friends, relatives. A second and their gazes were on her. For misunderstanding, disgust. She darted her eyes around the hall, looking for a single island of salvation. But there was no salvation. A look froze on her face that I will remember forever. The realization of his own demise. I slowly removed the ring, held it in my hands for a few seconds, then threw it to the floor. The silence was deafening. She looked at me. There's a pleading look in his eyes. But it's too late. I turned around and walked away. When I left the hall, a strange feeling came over me. It was not the euphoria of victory, not gloating, not the triumph of justice. It was something else. A deafening emptiness inside. A heaviness that slowly settled in my chest. I had done everything I wanted to do. I had ruined her life just as she had ruined mine. But why didn't it get easier? There were muffled voices behind me, someone's excited exclamations. I could hear her name being called. Some were speaking quickly, excitedly. Others, on the contrary, were whispering in confusion. They didn't understand how to react to what had just happened. Questions swirled in my mind. Was it worth it? Should I have walked away without turning around? Or should I have looked her in the eye, seen her fall? I got in the car and turned on the ignition, but I didn't move. My hands were on the steering wheel, but my fingers were shaking. From anger? From relief? From the realization that this day would now be forever etched in the memories of everyone in the audience? She stood there, in the middle of the wedding hall, among friends and family, among people who had admired her a second ago. Now they were looking at her with contempt. At first, she probably tried to say something. Find an excuse, lie, make up some ridiculous story that might explain what they'd seen on the screen of their phones. But what could she say? How could she explain months, years of betrayal? First the panic, then the denial, then the realization that there was no way out. Parents, guests, friends, no one stood up for her. Her mother covered her face with her hands. Her father sat stone-faced, unable even to raise his eyes. They, like everyone else, saw in her not the girl they had loved and raised. In front of them was now a liar, a cheater, a cheat. Their gazes were filled with the realization that they had wasted years of their lives on a man who had disgraced them. Someone among the guests shook their heads. Someone exhaled loudly, someone stepped aside. The bridesmaids, the very ones who knew the truth, now stood aside, hesitant to support her. She was alone. The world she had spent years building had crumbled in an instant. Everything she tried to hide came out like dirt that could never be washed away. There wasn't a single person left who could believe her anymore. I stared at the black screen of the phone, as if trying to find the answer to the question, what now? It's over. I did it. She got what she deserved. Her life would never be the same again. Everyone who had ever respected her now looked at her with contempt. And I felt nothing but devastation. Outside the doors of the hall, the showdown continued. Some of the guests began to leave. Their eyes slid to me, but no one dared to speak. I could only wait for her to show up here on the street, and I'd have to see her face. But what will I see? Tears? Anger? An attempt to justify herself? What will she say? That it was my fault for poking around in her personal life? That I shouldn't have done it in front of everyone? That I'm cruel? I didn't want to hear her words. I knew she'd come out when she realized no one was waiting for her inside. When her mother would turn away and her father wouldn't look at her. When even her friends would go away, leaving her among strangers' eyes, among people who yesterday envied her and now despise her. She'll be out. We'll stand at the door, in a white dress that no longer means anything. With soiled makeup. Alone. And he'll realize the depths of his mistake. She didn't just betray me. She betrayed everyone. Family, friends, myself. And now she has no future. I took a deep breath. It's time to go. There's nothing else to do here. I turned the key in the ignition, drove the car out onto the road. Left her behind. Left it all behind. There was a void ahead, but now it was my void. Without her. I drove down the road, but my thoughts stayed there, outside the wedding hall. Everything had happened just as I'd planned. No surprises, no glitches. I took everything from her. Shattered her life the way she'd shattered mine. Left her amongst dumbfounded guests, amongst parents who could no longer look her in the eye, amongst friends who would never trust her again. She didn't just lose me. She lost everyone. But why was there only emptiness inside? I waited for relief, but it didn't come. The tension still sat in my chest, though there was no point in holding on to it anymore. It was over. I should have felt satisfaction, but I felt only silence. I reached my apartment and sat on my bed, staring at one point. My phone was lying next to me, but I didn't pick it up. Didn't check messages, didn't watch the news. I knew what was there. Conversations, discussions, files forwarded to each other, the scandal that would now become the main topic among my acquaintances. She's probably already read the whole thing. Her phone was ringing off the hook. Girlfriends who knew the truth were now making excuses to their boyfriends. Relatives were trying to understand how they could have been so blind. Everyone who had ever defended her now felt like a fool. She was alone. I pictured her in that moment. Standing there in a wedding dress that no one else wanted. Staring at the screen of her phone, rereading messages that might have made her smile before, but now only shattered her world. She lost control. It was no longer possible to just gloss over it. It was impossible to come up with a beautiful lie that could save her. Everything she'd built, reputation, connections, relationships, all gone in one day. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes. I thought life would change after that day. But the room was the same. The air is just as heavy. I was still the same person who learned of the betrayal yesterday. All that had changed was that now she knew the truth too. The phone vibrated. I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Her number was still saved, but it was as if the name had lost its meaning. What was the point of it now? I stared at the screen but didn't pick up the phone. She won't give up so easily. Trying to convince me to meet. Try to talk, make excuses. Maybe cry. But what could she say? I didn't mean to? It didn't mean anything? I love only you? Her voice, even if it was full of tears, wouldn't change anything. She lost the right to explain. I dropped the call. The phone vibrated again. And again. I turned off the sound and put its screen down. There's nothing more to say. The next day, social media was already abuzz with discussion. People who were at the wedding shared stories. Not directly, but the hints were obvious. Someone posted a photo of a floral arch with the caption, "Not every wedding ends with a wedding." Someone was taking pictures of the empty hall, which was no longer filled with guests but still had decorations standing. The scandal went beyond our circle. People who didn't even know her personally started talking. She was now a story that would be discussed for years to come. Another day later, I found out she'd been fired. Her job was about image, about business contacts. Now she was a disgrace. The company didn't want to be associated with the woman everyone is discussing. Her superiors tried to keep quiet at first, but the pressure was too much. I could picture her signing the termination papers, walking out of the office realizing that nothing would ever be the same again. She no longer had a job, a future, or support. She's really lost everything. A week later, I saw her again. Completely by accident. She was sitting in a cafe, alone, in front of a cup of coffee she hadn't even touched. It was obvious she was awake. Puffy eyes, dark circles, staring at nothing. She was broken. I paused for a second, watching her from afar. In another life, in another situation, I might have felt sorry for her. But not now. Now she was just paying for her actions. I turned and walked away without giving her a chance to speak. Her voice didn't mean anything anymore. Like herself. I thought that was the end of the story. But really it was just my fresh start. I was no longer someone who believed in words, no longer someone who took lies for truth. She's just a ghost of the past now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. If you liked the story, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm show my content more often. If you are new to the channel, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep making more stories for you.